Welcome back to Justice Insight Cam. We bring you unfiltered, real-world police interactions recorded straight from body cameras. Moving beyond the video, we analyze the facts, legal boundaries, and critical takeaways from each case. Let us explore the reality of justice.
Ma'am, stop right there. Don't move.
Excuse me, this is my house. Who are you?
Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need you to come with us for questioning.
I'm Congresswoman Ela Harris. You're in my driveway. Do you have a warrant?
We don't need one. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Ma'am.
4 ICE agents believed they were carrying out a standard immigration enforcement operation. They had an address, an anonymous tip, and the kind of confidence that grows after years of acting without consequences. But when they turned into Congresswoman Ela Harris's driveway at 11 a.m. on a Thursday and attempted to detain her without a warrant, they triggered a chain of events that would land all 4 agents in federal prison, erase their careers, and set a precedent that would reshape how federal law enforcement operates. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The security cameras on Congresswoman Harris's suburban Virginia home captured it all. Every word, every unlawful move, every second of a federal crime unfolding in daylight. And unlike body cam footage that can be shut off or malfunction, these cameras were private systems uploading to the cloud in real time, completely beyond the control of the agents who were about to ruin their own lives. Ela Harris had represented Virginia's 8th congressional district for 8 years. At 51, she was known for immigration reform work, outspoken criticism of ICE overreach, and steady civil rights advocacy. She'd introduced legislation to increase oversight of immigration enforcement, held hearings on detention conditions, and publicly challenged the ICE's tactics. She had enemies within ICE, agents who resented her scrutiny and wanted her silenced. That Thursday began like any other morning. Elaine had been up since 6 o'clock, went for a run, showered, and was preparing to drive to Capitol Hill for committee meetings. Her husband, David, had already gone to his law firm for the day. Her 2 adult children were away at college. She was by herself. The security system she'd installed after receiving threats from extremist groups covered every angle of her property. 4 cameras on the exterior, 2 on the driveway, 1 on the front porch, 1 covering the side yard. All recording in 4K, all with audio, all uploading to secure cloud storage every 30 seconds. At 10:58 a.m., the cameras picked up a black SUV with government plates turning into her driveway. Elaine was in her kitchen, gathering her briefcase and files for the day's meetings. She heard the vehicle and glanced out the window, assuming it was a constituent or a staff member. But when she stepped out her front door at 11:02 a.m., she found 4 ICE agents climbing out of the SUV. Lead Agent Christopher Nash, a 16-year veteran with a thick file of misconduct complaints. Agent Tyler Bennett, younger but equally aggressive. Agent Nicole Pritchard, who'd been with ICE for 7 years and had learned to follow orders without question. And Agent James Wu, the newest member of the team, only 2 years in and already being shaped by the culture of impunity. The driveway camera had a perfect view. Elaine, dressed in a navy blue suit and heels, briefcase in hand, stopping at the top of her porch steps. The 4 agents spreading out in what looked like a tactical formation. Nash stepping forward, his expression already hostile. "Ma'am, stop right there. Don't move," Nash called out. Elaine's hand tightened on her briefcase. She immediately knew something was wrong. "Excuse me, this is my house. Who are you?" Nash pulled out his badge, holding it up, but not close enough for her to read the name. "Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need you to come with us for questioning." Elaine descended 2 steps, her voice firm. "About what?" I'm Congresswoman Ela Harris. You're in my driveway. Do you have a warrant? We don't need one, Nash said, moving closer. We have authority under federal immigration law to question individuals suspected of harboring or assisting illegal aliens. The camera captured Elaine's face, shock mixed with anger. Suspected by whom? On what basis? You can't just show up at a congresswoman's home without a warrant and demand she submit to questioning. Bennett moved to flank her left side, cutting off a potential retreat into the house. Ma'am, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can cooperate and come with us for questioning, or we can detain you for obstruction. Elaine pulled her phone from her jacket pocket. I'm calling my attorney. Pritchard stepped forward. Put the phone down, ma'am. You're not calling anyone until we've completed our investigation. Investigation of what? Elaine demanded, her voice rising. You show up at my home, refuse to show me a warrant, and now you're telling me I can't call my lawyer. Do you have any idea how many federal laws you're violating right now? Nash's face hardened. The cameras caught every micro-expression, the tightening of his jaw, the narrowing of his eyes. This was a man who didn't like being challenged, especially not by a black woman, congresswoman or not. Ma'am, we have credible information that you've been harboring undocumented individuals at this residence. We're authorized to question you and search the premises. Elaine's voice went cold. Then show me the warrant for the search. Show me the probable cause affidavit. Show me any legal documentation that gives you the right to be on my property making these accusations. Wu shifted uncomfortably. He was the only agent who seemed to realize this was spiraling into dangerous territory, but he said nothing. We have administrative authority that supersedes standard warrant requirements in immigration cases, Nash stated, reciting a justification that sounded official but was completely fabricated. That's not true, and you know it, Elaine shot back. I sit on the Judiciary Committee. I know immigration law better than you do. You need a warrant to search my home. You need probable cause to detain me. You have neither. Nash took another step forward, now at the base of her porch steps. Turn around. Ma'am, hands behind your back. Elaine stood her ground. I'm not doing that. You have no legal authority to arrest me. I'm ordering you to leave my property immediately. The security footage showed what happened next, with crystal clarity. Nash grabbed Elaine's arm. She pulled back, not violently, but firmly, asserting her right not to be touched. Bennett moved in from the side, grabbing her other arm. Elaine's briefcase fell, papers scattering across the porch. Get your hands off me, Elaine shouted. This is assault. I'm a member of Congress. But they weren't listening. Nash forced her arm behind her back. The angle was wrong, too high, too rough. Elaine cried out in pain. The camera captured it all. The grimace on her face, the aggressive way the agents manhandled her. Pritchard moving in to help restrain her while Wu hung back, his face troubled. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed across the quiet suburban street. A neighbor, an older white woman named Patricia Coleman, had come out of her house, drawn by the commotion. Her phone was already out recording from a different angle. What are you doing? Patricia called out. That's Congresswoman Harris. Leave her alone. Nash turned briefly. Ma'am, step back. This is federal business. Federal business. Patricia's voice was shrill with outrage. You're arresting a congresswoman in her own driveway. Another neighbor, a middle-aged black man named Jerome Watson, appeared on his porch. You started recording too. Within minutes, 3 more neighbors had emerged, all filming, all witnessing. Elaine, now in handcuffs, kept her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder where Nash had wrenched her arm. You are all making the biggest mistake of your careers. Every one of you, this is being recorded. Your badges, your faces, every illegal action. And when this goes to trial, every second of this footage will be used against you. Nash's response was to grip her arm tighter and march her toward the SUV Bennett opened. The back door. They pushed Elaine inside, her head nearly hitting the door frame. She managed to duck at the last second, but the rough treatment was obvious to every camera, every witness. Before they could close the door, Elaine spoke clearly, projecting her voice so the cameras would catch it. "My name is Congresswoman Elaine Harris, United States House of Representatives, Virginia's 8th District. I am being illegally detained by ICE agents who have no warrant, no probable cause, and no legal authority for this arrest. The date is Thursday, and the time is approximately 11:15 a.m. I am being taken against my will from my home. I have committed no crime." Nash slammed the door shut. The SUV's windows were tinted, but the license plate was clearly visible in the footage. The agents climbed in, and the vehicle backed out of the driveway at 11:17 a.m. Patricia Coleman was already on the phone with 911. Jerome Watson was texting Elaine's chief of staff, whose number he had from constituent meetings. The other neighbors were uploading their videos to social media with captions like, "ICE just arrested our congresswoman and watched them take Elaine Harris from her own home." Within 20 minutes, the footage was everywhere. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. The images of a black congresswoman being handcuffed in her driveway, her papers scattered on her porch, her neighbors protesting, agents forcing her into an SUV. It went viral instantly. Elaine's chief of staff, Marcus Johnson, saw the texts and videos while in his Capitol Hill office. He immediately called the Speaker of the House Majority Leader, and Elaine's attorney, a civil rights lawyer named Catherine Reed, who'd handled high-profile cases for decades. Reed was in a federal courthouse when she got the call. She walked out of one case and straight into what would become the most significant civil rights prosecution of her career. At the ICE field office in Arlington, Nash and his team brought Elaine into an interrogation room. The room had cameras, but they were controlled by ICE. What the agents didn't know was that Elaine's phone, still in her jacket pocket, had automatically started recording audio when she triggered the emergency function before they grabbed her. Nash sat across from her, Bennett standing behind him. Pritchard and Wu waited outside. "Congresswoman," Nash began his tone, mocking the title. "We have information that you've been harboring undocumented workers in your home. We need to know who they are and where they are now." Elaine met his eyes, her voice level. "I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and my Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. I will not answer any questions without my lawyer present." Nash leaned forward. "That's going to make things harder for you." "Is it?" Elaine asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've already committed multiple federal crimes. False arrest, kidnapping under color of law, deprivation of civil rights, assault, and that's just in the last hour. You think invoking my constitutional rights makes things harder for me?" Bennett slammed his hand on the table. "You think your position protects you? You think because you're in Congress you can break the law." "What law did I break?" Elaine asked calmly. "Name one. Show me one shred of evidence that I've done anything illegal." Nash pulled out a folder, but when he opened it, there was almost nothing inside. A single page with a vague anonymous tip that claimed someone had seen suspicious activity at her address. No names, no dates, no specific allegations, nothing that would constitute probable cause for anything. "This is your evidence?" Elaine asked, reading the page upside down. "An anonymous tip with no specifics. That's what you used to justify arresting a sitting congresswoman." The door burst open. A supervisor, Deputy Director Amanda Chin, entered with 2 federal agents from a different agency. Her face was white, with fury. "Nash Bennett out." Now, the interrogation ended at 11:52 a.m. Elaine was released at 12:03 p.m., exactly 1 hour after her arrest. Catherine Reed was already there along with Marcus Johnson and a representative from the Speaker's office. The drive back to Ela's house was tense. Reed was already on her phone, coordinating with the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, with the House General Counsel, with everyone who needed to know that federal agents had just arrested a congresswoman without cause. When they pulled into Elaine's driveway at 12:41 p.m., news vans were already lining the street. The footage from the security cameras had been released by Elaine's team, and every network was running it on loop. Elaine stood on her porch, the same porch where she'd been arrested 90 minutes earlier, and gave a statement. Her voice was steady, her anger controlled but evident. This morning, 4 ICE agents came to my home without a warrant, without probable cause, and without legal authority. They arrested me in my driveway, handcuffed me, and took me to a detention facility for interrogation. I committed no crime. I violated no law. I was targeted because of my work holding ICE accountable for civil rights violations, and because I've been a vocal critic of their overreach. What happened to me this morning is what happens to countless people every day. People who don't have cameras, who don't have lawyers on speed dial, who don't have the protection of congressional office. The difference is, I have the resources to fight back. And I will fight back, not just for myself, but for every person who's been illegally detained, every family that's been torn apart, every community that's been terrorized by agents who think their badges put them above the law. The Justice Department opened a criminal investigation that afternoon. The FBI seized the agent service weapons, their badges, and their credentials. By 5 p.m., all 4 were placed on administrative leave. By 6 p.m., the security footage became the cornerstone of the case. Multiple cameras, multiple angles, clear audio timestamps, everything needed to prove exactly what had happened. The neighbor's cell phone videos corroborated every detail. The audio from Elaine's phone captured the interrogation. The evidence was overwhelming. Nash had fabricated justification for the arrest. Bennett had participated in the assault. Pritchard had aided and abetted. Wu had stood by and done nothing, making him complicit. The charges came down 6 weeks later. Deprivation of rights under color of law, a federal felony carrying up to 10 years in prison. Conspiracy to violate civil rights, kidnapping, false imprisonment, assault. Should all federal law enforcement be required to respect congressional immunity in office with automatic criminal prosecution for violations? Comment below. Because what happened to Elaine Harris wasn't just about one congresswoman. It was about whether anyone in federal law enforcement could be held accountable when they decided the law didn't apply to them. The trial was swift. The footage played in court, watched by a jury that included 2 black women, a Latino man, and 9 white jurors, who ranged from a teacher to a retired engineer. They watched Nash grab Elaine. They heard her invoke her rights. They saw the rough treatment, the lack of warrant, the fabricated justification. Nash's attorney tried to argue that he'd been acting in good faith on the anonymous tip, but the cross-examination destroyed him. Agent Nash, when Congresswoman Harris told you she was a member of Congress, what did you think? I thought she was trying to use her position to avoid questioning. Did you verify her identity? No. Why not? I didn't think it mattered. You didn't think it mattered that you might be arresting a United States Congresswoman? She looked like the other people we typically deal with. The courtroom went silent. The prosecutor let that statement hang in the air. What do you mean looked like the other people you typically deal with? Nash realized his mistake. I mean, I didn't recognize her. You mean she was a black woman, so you assumed she must be involved in immigration violations? No, that's not. Agent Nash, in your 16-year career, how many white people have you arrested for harboring undocumented immigrants? I don't keep track of race. I'll answer for you. According to ICU records, 0. You've arrested 47 people for harboring or assisting undocumented immigrants. All 47 were people of color. All 47. Is that a coincidence? Nash had no answer. Bennett's testimony was worse. He admitted under oath that he knew the arrest was questionable, but followed Nash's lead because Nash was the senior agent. He admitted he'd grabbed Elaine Harris roughly. He admitted he'd heard her invoke her rights and ignored it. Pritchard broke down on the stand, admitting she'd known it was wrong, but was afraid of retaliation if she spoke up. She testified against Nash and Bennett in exchange for a reduced sentence. Wu's testimony was the most damaging. He described the culture within their unit, the way Nash targeted people of color, the way complaints were ignored, the way aggressive tactics were encouraged. He admitted he should have stopped the arrest, but didn't because he feared Nash's influence could end his career. The defense tried to claim they'd been following protocols, but the prosecution brought in ISIS's own training manuals, legal experts, former agents who testified that everything about the arrest violated standard procedure. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was packed. Elaine Harris sat in the front row, her husband beside her, her 2 children home from college to support her. Media filled every available seat. The judge, a black woman named Vanessa Richardson, who'd served on the federal bench for 20 years, read the verdict, and then delivered a statement that would be quoted for years afterward. The defendants in this case committed one of the most egregious violations of civil rights I have seen in my time on this bench. They arrested a sitting congresswoman without warrant, without cause, and without regard for the law they swore to uphold. But this case is about more than Congresswoman Harris. It's about every person who has been illegally detained by agents who believe their authority is absolute. The evidence shows a pattern of racial targeting of constitutional violations of an institutional culture that enabled and encouraged this behavior. The sentence must reflect not only the severity of the crime, but the need to send a clear message that no badge, no uniform, no federal authority places anyone above the law. Nash received 5 years in federal prison. Bennett received 4 years. Pritchard, who cooperated, received 2 years, who received 3 years of probation and was barred from federal law. Enforcement for life. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of one of Nash's family members crying softly in the back row. Ela Harris gave a statement outside the courthouse. She spoke about the need for accountability, for reform, for a system that protected civil rights instead of violating them. She spoke about the people who didn't have her resources, who faced the same illegal treatment but couldn't fight back. Justice today isn't just for me, she said, her voice clear in the afternoon sun. It's for every person who's been told to prove they belong in this country. It's for every family torn apart by agents who see brown skin and assume criminality. It's for every community terrorized by people who think a badge gives them permission to ignore the Constitution. The 4 agents began serving their sentences within weeks. Nash was sent to a federal facility in Pennsylvania, Bennett to one in Kentucky, Pritchard to a women's facility in West Virginia. They would serve at least 85% of their sentences before being eligible for release. Their careers were over, their pensions forfeited, their names forever associated with one of the most clear-cut cases of civil rights violations in federal law enforcement history. The civil lawsuit came later. Elaine sued the agents personally and ICE as an agency. The settlement was confidential, but sources close to the case suggested it was substantial, with the money going to organizations that provided legal defense for immigrants and families facing deportation. ICE implemented changes, though whether they were meaningful remained to be seen. New training on congressional immunity, new protocols for arrests, new oversight mechanisms, But the culture that had enabled Nash and his team didn't disappear overnight. Ela Harris continued her work in Congress, if anything, more determined than before. She introduced legislation to strengthen protections against illegal detention, to increase penalties for federal agents who violated civil rights, to create independent oversight of immigration enforcement. Her security camera stayed up, still recording, still backing up to the cloud, a reminder that in an age where everything can be documented, the truth has a way of coming to light. The neighbors who'd recorded that Thursday morning were hailed as heroes. Patricia Coleman spoke at community meetings about the importance of witnessing, of recording, of not staying silent when you see injustice. Jerome Watson kept a copy of his video on his phone, showing it to anyone who questioned whether illegal arrests really happened to people like Congresswoman. The house where it happened became something of a landmark. Tour buses would sometimes slow down as they passed, guides pointing out where Congresswoman Harris was illegally arrested. Elaine found it both validating and disturbing that her violation had become a tourist attraction. But she used it. She invited groups to her home, showed them the security, footage, walked them through what happened, explained why it mattered. She turned her driveway into a classroom, teaching about civil rights, about the Fourth Amendment, about why accountability matters. Years later, when asked if she'd forgiven the agents, Elaine's answer was carefully considered. Forgiveness is personal, and I'm working on that. But accountability isn't about forgiveness. It's about ensuring this doesn't happen again. Those 4 agents are in prison not because I'm vindictive, but because they committed serious federal crimes. The sentence they're serving is a message to every federal agent that the law applies to you too. That's not about forgiveness, that's about justice. The security footage is still online, still being watched, still being used in training sessions about what not to do, about how quickly lawful authority can become criminal action, about why civil rights matter. 4 cameras captured approximately 98 minutes of footage that day. From the moment the SUV pulled in until Elaine was released and returned home. 98 minutes that destroyed 4 careers, sent 4 people to federal prison, and proved that even federal agents with years of unchecked authority can face consequences when their crimes are captured in 4K video with clear audio and uploaded to the cloud before they even realize what's happening. Nash's attorney filed an appeal, arguing the sentence was excessive. It was denied. Bennett's family claimed he was just following orders. The judge noted that following illegal orders is not a defense, as established in Nuremberg. Pritchard wrote letters from prison expressing remorse. Wu completed his probation and now works as a warehouse supervisor. His law enforcement career over before it really began. The lesson settled over the law enforcement community like a cold truth they couldn't ignore. Cameras are everywhere. Witnesses are everywhere. And when you violate someone's rights, especially someone with the resources to fight back, the consequences can be swift, severe, and permanent. Elaine Harris still lives in that house, still parks in that driveway, still walks out her front door every morning to go to work representing her constituents. The difference is every federal agent within a 100 miles knows exactly who she is and what happens when you think your badge lets you ignore the law. Sometimes justice is complicated, nuanced, hard to achieve. But sometimes it's crystal clear, captured in multiple camera angles, backed by irrefutable evidence, and delivered by a jury who saw exactly what happened and decided that enough was enough. For agents learned that lesson in the hardest way possible. And somewhere in communities across the country, people who'd been illegally detained, who'd been targeted because of their skin color, who'd been told they had no rights, those people saw the footage and the verdict and felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope that accountability was possible. Proof that the system could work. Evidence that sometimes the truth wins. If you believe that federal agents must be held to the same laws they enforce, and that civil rights apply to everyone regardless of their position, subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we're bringing another story that proves documentation and courage can bring down even the most powerful people who think they're untouchable.
We appreciate you tuning in. If this breakdown helped you understand the situation better, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Stay aware, stay protected, and we will see you next time.